Welcome to the Neurodiverse Lens, a CDL podcast featuring Carolyn and Jordan.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for another episode of the Neurodiverse Lens with Carolyn and Jordan. We're from the Center for Diverse Learners. If this is your first time watching the podcast, we talk about issues affecting neurodiversity from both a professional and a personal lens, and we're really excited that you're joining us today.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about something that nearly affects every part of a child's day, executive functioning. So in a moment, Carolyn's going to go over an overview of what executive functioning is, but I also want to get into how many families come to CDL not even realizing that these executive functioning skills are what could be making mornings, routines, or homework so much tougher for their children.
This is a big one, and a lot of times families don't realize it because they don't know what executive functioning is. They hear it mentioned in their psych report, maybe a teacher's mentioned it to them, but it's really hard to understand what it can be because it's hard for everyone to understand. So executive functioning is the planning part of your brain. So if you have a task or a series of tasks to complete, your executive functioning is taking control of how you do those tasks. So part of that is the order in which you do something. Then there is prioritizing is a piece of executive functioning. Then there's working memory, which is holding key pieces of information you're going to need while doing the task. So for example, it might be you telling me a telephone number and then I've got to dial it in and then I've got to call someone and I need to know what I need to say on that. It also is tied to emotional regulation. And executive functioning isn't just for neurodiverse individuals. Everyone has executive functioning. Mm-hmm. That's a part of everyone's brain. And also everyone has moments of executive functioning, I'm going to use the word failure, but where your brain just isn't giving you the information that you need. It's just more common with neurodiverse individuals that they're having consistent issues with that planning. So let me give you an example. So an example might be, you say to your child, first thing Saturday morning, okay, what I want you to do is after breakfast, I want you to go clean your room. And if you have good executive functioning skills, that sounds like one task. You're like, clean your room. That's a task. But that's because your brain is naturally able to pull apart all the tasks that are part of cleaning the room, the steps you're going to need to take, what things you'll need. So are you going to need to bring up the vacuum? Do you need to bring a duster into the room? All of that is executive functioning. And if your executive functioning is functioning well, doesn't seem stressful. But if you're a child and your executive functioning skills are low, it feels like you're planning a trip to climb Mount Everest, trying to put together all the things that you're going to need, remembering to do all the pieces of cleaning your room. One of the things that used to happen to me when I was a child is dusting was one of my chores, and I'd always miss a whole portion of a room. I would just forget to dust. All of that is executive functioning. Then when we tie in that emotional regulation piece, this is why when you ask your child to clean their room, suddenly they have an emotional reaction, because the weight of the heaviness of trying to figure out how to do that task can cause that emotional reaction. And it is also very cyclical. This is the tough piece. This is why parents will say, oh, my kid's having problems with ADHD, but they don't know how many of the symptoms are related to the executive functioning piece. And then when your emotions aren't great, when you're tired or frustrated or overwhelmed, your executive functioning is worse. So they can play into each other, and that's when you see a meltdown. So that was a really long answer to your question. We see a lot of families who are starting to understand that piece of executive function, but don't understand that because it's not a diagnosis in itself, that sometimes it still can be the primary issue that's impacting your child.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of an example, just before we got here, I had a doctor's appointment over the phone, which kind of started me on a little bit of an emotional journey, and I ended up forgetting half of the stuff that I was supposed to bring today. So that's a perfect example of another situation in the real world, and something that, anyone can experience. So, and, it threw off my routine of my day, which then kind of snowballed into a bunch of other other things that I ended up forgetting. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so real. And this is one of the things that can affect families so much. So imagine you're a child, you're a neurodiverse child. The schools can be a difficult place for neurodiverse children. They're loud, there's lots of tasks you're being asked to do, and schoolwork is generally taxing on that executive functioning part of the brain. And then you come home in that tired, overworked state, and now you have to executive function your night. If a kid has to get ready for hockey, but they have to do their homework first, those are all pieces that a kid with ADHD can need support with. And as a parent, it can be so frustrating because you're like, I told you to do your homework first. Why am I catching you just sitting at the kitchen counter eating a bowl of Cheerios? And that can be the executive functioning, but it can look sometimes like defiance.
Yeah, and what could potentially be some other ways that a parent might be able to see these executive functioning challenges showing up? Could it possibly present itself through like transition periods as well?
Transitions are a big one. One of the things parents will often say to me is, why does my child struggle with transitions for things they want to do? And it's because of that executive functioning piece. For example, let's take going swimming. I think most kids love going swimming, but there's a lot of pieces to going swimming, right? You have to bring the right things. You have to go somewhere. You're going to have the sensory changes of being in that water, and that can all lead to that emotional reaction to having to go swimming. So that's where, as a parent, you're saying, okay, in 5 minutes, we're going to go swimming, and the kid goes fine. And then you go, okay, it's time to go swimming. And suddenly they're like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
That can be because of executive functioning. It's causing that stress around that transition, because sometimes what it can feel like for the child is almost blankness. When they think about what they have to do that thing, they don't even know what the next step is. And so that can be really frustrating. The other area that parents see this, and this is a way that parents can change homework time in the evenings. So if you're a parent and you're struggling with homework time, one of the issues that can be affecting your child is their executive functioning. And it might not be that they can't do the work. It might be that they don't know how to start doing the work, and they need your support to get started. And it can sometimes give you an inaccurate viewpoint of what your child can do academically, because they come home with this homework and they go, okay, what do you need to do? And the kid goes, I don't know. I don't understand. But they do actually understand. What they don't understand is the actual mechanics of doing it, which is taking the homework out of the bag, rereading the instructions, rereading sections, pulling out the right pages from their duotang, all of those pieces that can be difficult. And so if homework time is really stressful and your child seems suddenly defiant or just completely unable to do work that you know that they can do, it might be that executive functioning. And then that's an easy fix. Help them get started. Sit with them for that starting piece.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads us into my next question is, what are some strategies that you could recommend to parents or caregivers to kind of help reduce the conflict around, these scenarios that are happening when it comes to transitions, homework, just the routine of coming home from school and getting into like home mode?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jordan. And for anyone who's watched all of our episodes, they know what I'm going to say first. Those visual schedules.
Yes.
If this is your first episode, a visual schedule is just that. It is a schedule that is visual. You put it up on your wall. My recommendation is to the night before, go over the visual schedule with your child so they know what to expect the next day. This actually takes some burden off their executive functioning because they know what to expect. They know what's going to happen. They can ask questions ahead of time and go over that. So you're going to do your visual schedule. You mentioned routine, and routine is such a key one. I know with busy families, it can't be the same every night. Schedules are too busy, but you can develop what I like to call like a Monday routine, and then there's a Tuesday routine. And so then when you're doing that visual schedule, you're reinforcing that routine. And to help children who struggle with executive functioning, it's not giving them the routine and say, okay, this is what you're going to do. I see parents do this, wanting to support their child and then getting frustrated when it's not successful. So you can't say to your kid, I want you to come in, put your shoes away, hang up your backpack, take your lunch out, put it in the fridge, and then grab a snack. That's not going to work. And then you're going to be frustrated when it doesn't work every day. What you want to do is do the task with your child, or if your child is older and you're not able to be there, is have a prompt at each station. So when they take off their shoes, you might have a little Post-it note that says, hang up your backpack. And then above where they hang up their backpack, it's take out your lunch. And so they're getting those prompts along the way. You want to support them. I will tell you, really being emphatic with your child that you've told them 100 times to do something will not lead to better executive functioning.
No.
You're going to have to support that skill. And that's not to be critical of any parent. It makes sense. It's just 5 steps. But if your executive functioning isn't great, that's not going to work. Before we started filming, and this is a true story of how when I'm stressed, my executive functioning can be in the ground. I was at work and I had to take a key from one room into another room and put it in a drawer. It was an important key. I made a staff member walk with me and make sure I put it in the drawer, because if anyone talked to me while I'm super stressed and I'm in a different work mode, that key is going to go missing. This is another thing. This one is so important for parents. Does your child have paper amnesia? Like, you hand that child a paper and it is gone and they will never find it and they never know where any paper is. That is actually executive functioning. And so if you have a child who struggles with paper, take pictures of any paper they're given. And if they have an IEP and are entitled to accommodations, I love asking for everything to be virtual for kids who have executive functionings. If someone passes me a piece of paper and they don't see me put it in the place where it belongs, that piece of paper never existed. I will never be able to find it. And it's something that so frustrates parents, rightfully so, especially if you're the parent who has good executive functioning, because all of these steps that you don't see are going on in someone's brain who doesn't have that natural executive functioning skills. Like, you're the type of person that when someone says clean your room, you see it as one task. Mm-hmm. You might not understand why the child is not even concentrating on that this piece of paper is in their hand and it just goes anywhere. And so that's a tip for parents. Make paper digital as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that is super important, especially someone who I feel like I have paper amnesia. I've never heard that phrase before, but I resonate with that completely. I can't even tell you how many photos on my phone are of pieces of paper, because I know if I put something in my purse, it is just a black hole and it's gone forever. So yeah, and I think going back to the like visual prompts at every station for the child, I think that's so important to help build the autonomy of the child as well. And even like you do see that in classrooms as well. I remember like being a child and, you know, seeing the little stickers above like the cloak hooks being like, your bag goes here, now find your seat kind of thing. And I remember like specifically seeing those and like never realizing how much they actually helped. But now obviously looking back and reflecting on that, you know, I clearly had very good teachers to say the least. But
and
yeah.
To add on to that, also you can slowly pull the prompts back over time. So it might be, to start, a very clear Post-it note that you ask your child to physically like check off.
Right.
And then over time it might just be like a red sticker that just prompts their memory, oh yeah, to go there, so that you can build that skill over time. Because I know parents worry, they're like, well, what about the real world, which we hear about a lot. And I live in the real world and I am a somewhat successful adult. So it is possible, but I understand that concern. But you can change the accommodations over time. One of my favorite things to tell parents, if your child's struggling to clean their room, clean it with them to start.
Yeah.
And then slowly pull back that support. So it might be the first time you're doing everything with them, you're helping them understand the steps. Maybe time 3, you're just standing there and kind of giving them prompts. Then it's maybe you're not in the room with them, but you're just on the same floor and you're checking in. And then you can pull back over time. Keeping in mind, though, that executive functioning is fluid and it's not consistent over time. So your child may need more support at other times than others. Like, for example, exam time, your child might need more support because they're thinking of so many other things and it's a high stress time.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, the emotional impact on the parents, how would a parent or a caregiver or really anybody else in the family, kind of navigate the struggles that happens with all the executive functioning challenges that their child or maybe even their sibling might be experiencing, or even if they feel like nothing is working?
Yeah, I mean, it is frustrating. Let's say you have put a very important piece of paper in your child's backpack that has to get to school and it doesn't. That's frustration that you have to deal with. Or if every time you need to transition and your child has an emotional reaction to that, that gets exhausting. If you have multiple children and there can sometimes be resentment amongst siblings because one child is getting more support than the other children, all of that is really challenging. And my advice is to accept the difficulty. I think sometimes some of the stress can be that we push difficulty away, or we say things like, oh, I wish this wasn't so difficult and I wish this was easier, which is normal and natural. No shame for feeling that way. But I have found it is easier to say, my child really struggles with this and it's frustrating for me sometimes. You're not going to say that out loud if your child's there, but just internally, this is frustrating. Like, acknowledging that frustration. The other piece is you need to be celebrating the successes that your child has. It's easy in the moment to catastrophize the situation, but sometimes if you step back and you're like, you know what? I used to get a call home from school every week, and now I don't. So yes, my child forgot their math book the night before a math test again, and now my child is stressed, and now I am stressed, and the school's locked, and we can't get it. But if you take that moment to celebrate the successes, I think that that can help that piece. And then for the other members of the family, talking with the other children about what the child is experiencing so that they understand. Interestingly, though, one of the things that I have found happened, and this is from working with parents for almost 20 years, is that because a lot of executive functioning issues are hereditary, is that often it can actually improve the marriage of the parents, because suddenly the one spouse understands the other spouse is not doing it on purpose. It's like, oh, you don't forget your pay stub at work every Friday because you don't care about me. It's because of your executive functioning. And that piece really can happen if you allow that to happen. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of the families I worked with, they have to go through a time of frustration first before they can get to that other place. And that's why I say lean into it. There's no point pretending something isn't frustrating that is frustrating. It's just taking that other second to put that frustration in the context of, it is frustrating that we're in a rush and I want to go to school, want to bring the kids to school. And I'm going, where's your boots? Where's your coat? Did you pack your math bag? Why are you so upset right now? We just need to get in the car. I don't want to say that that isn't frustrating. And I don't want to put what I see sometimes happening to parents in our community is that they're supposed to just be these beacons of constant understanding. And I want to say there's also a difference. And I notice this with our families. So I don't even need to say this because neurodiverse families already know this. There is a difference between being internally frustrated at your child and being externally frustrated at your child. And I know parents of neurodiverse children know the difference. So I'm not saying be externally frustrated at your child. I'm saying be internally frustrated. And if you have a moment, because you are human, yes, parents of neurodiverse children, you are human and you are entitled to have human emotions and reactions and not be perfect. You're not a robot. It's okay to mess up and be frustrated with your child. go back and work through that together, because guess what? Other people in your child's life are going to be frustrated with them. They need to understand that people can be frustrated and they can get over it because they like and love them. So if you have a moment where you're short with your child, it's okay to later that night be like, you know what? I didn't do my best. I didn't do our co-breathing, because I'm a big fan of co-breathing. And that's what I should have done in the moment, and I regret it. But I hope you know I love you, and I hope you know that everybody has their bad moments, and I'm sorry that we had a bad moment together. Next time, let's remind each other to co-breathe. And co-breathing, for those who haven't watched other episodes, are just when you breathe together. You just take that moment, you push everything away, and you're just breathing, and you're just aligning your breath with your child.
That's funny that you brought that up, because that's exactly what I was thinking of. In one of our previous episodes, we were talking about I think you called it the box breathing.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's super important to kind of, stop in the moment and, have that activity with your child if you clearly are both dysregulated. And I think it's also important that parents, have compassion for themselves as well. And, if you need to, seek the external support. As many of you may know, for those who don't, we do offer free resource calls for Halton region families. So you can go and book an appointment on our website, and you can have a discussion with one of our staff members, and kind of just discuss any, if you need to find other resources, if you want to explore some of our programs that we have, or even attend one of our free monthly workshops for Halton families as well. That's something we offer. But yeah, that's another option for you. And to kind of summarize everything, Carolyn, what is one mindset shift that you would love every parent or caregiver to make when it comes to executive functioning at home?
I think the big takeaway I want everyone to have, whether it's yourself or someone else, is that no one is in control of how well their executive functioning is functioning in that moment. There are things you can do to improve it. You can take a moment, take a breath. But I don't think anyone intentionally forgets things. I don't think children choose to struggle with the transitions. It's easy to see it as a choice, but keeping in mind that it's not a choice, and that if you're a parent, it is easier to prevent that emotional reaction or those lost things than try to be angry in the moment and fix it.
Yeah.
Just have that compassion, both for yourself and for your child, and understand that there's a lot of shame for having poor executive functioning, and whether it's yourself or your child is going to get a lot of messages that they are not trying hard enough, or if they made a checklist, that things would be better. And that's not the case. There's things you can do to improve it. It's not hopeless. But no matter how well you know the strategies, both you and I know the strategies. We have been in rooms teaching these strategies. We're working with children, and sometimes we even forget to do the things because guess what? My brain didn't give me the cue to do the things I need to do to keep my executive functioning going.
Yeah, completely. And I think today for myself was a prime example of that. So yeah. But as we kind of close up the episode, is there anything that you want to plug or talk about, or anything exciting that's coming up at CDL?
Yeah. So if this resonates with you, that's great, because we have executive functioning courses. They're called Social Skills Executive Functioning, and we teach better strategies to help executive functioning at home, at school, and these are for youth in Hamilton and Halton. And because of the generosity of some of our funders, we're able to offer executive functioning free to Hamilton families. So thank you so much to our funders. That's the Hamilton District Society for Disabled Children, who really understood the importance of supporting youth in many ways in Hamilton, and that these courses have impact. So if you're a Hamilton family and you're watching this episode and you're going, that's my child, that's my child, that's my child. Well, you don't have to go through this alone. If you go onto our website, www.diverselearners.ca, go to the programming, and you can access our executive functioning course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks, Jordan, for being here today and sharing your story about forgetting everything back at our center.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for listening to the Neurodiverse Lens, a CDL podcast. For more information, visit diverselearners.ca.